Focusing on famine deaths is tabloid journalism. From the book I'll Ruin Everything You Are, Ending Western Propaganda on Red China by Ramin Mazaheri. If it bleeds, it leads, especially if your ideological enemy is bleeding. Western propaganda implies that the Great Leap Forward's famine was somehow a boon to Mao's bloody grab for power. It takes modern English language scholarship to debunk those lies. From Brown, begin quote, with the challenging Great Leap Forward of 1959 to 1961, Mao lost a huge amount of credibility, and his ability to push his platform was weakened. He even had to transfer presidency of China to Liu Shaoqi. This is not evidence of a despotic dictator, close quote. A major political pause was instituted in order to regroup and chart a new path. The third five-year plan would not start until 1966, 4 years after the ending of the second five-year plan. The Chinese people clearly became aware of the failures, and public disapproval forced political punishments accordingly. It's the people's democratic dictatorship, not the Mao dictatorship. Another viewpoint, which gives the West glaucoma, is, amid bad weather, locusts, overzealousness, and the usual domestic and foreign reactionary sabotage which accompanies any socialist revolution, the death toll could have been 50 million, 100 million, or more. The West never even considers this line of thought, but the Chinese are well aware that the government continued to distribute rations, continued to coordinate between differently hit and differently producing regions, continued to provide obviously revolutionary amounts of services to peasants, that education programs went on the entire time, and that these cumulative efforts by the government likely prevented worse results amid the succession of setbacks. And the failure to pursue this line makes it impossible for Westerners to understand why, despite the famine and hardship, the Chinese did not abandon the Communist Party, and why a nation awash in guns did not overthrow it violently. Indeed, if there was a protracted hoarding by party leaders, or a willful refusal to aid the people, it is absurd to think that a war-hardened, widely armed populace would not have decapitated the party. Of course, maybe you operate from the assumption that the Chinese are docile. Hey, that kind of thinking can take you all the way to Harvard. Indeed, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, was put in power by a popular revolution with the mandate to institute great leaps forward, and to hell with the old gods of rain, harvests, locusts, whatever. It is also never admitted that despite the famine and hardship, the Great Leap Forward and its agricultural revolution still empowered the peasants more than ever. Famine was not unknown to these people. At least they had some say in things now. This people-centered view, this from-below view of the very real political culture of socialism, was denied by people like Fairbank for decades. But as a historian, he is obliged to give at least the broad strokes, even if he always gets defensive at the end. Once they had been called into being and had found their way upwards in society through the collectivization of agriculture, this new stratum of activists in the countryside needed things to do, and were ready to go further. The Great Leap Forward was hard to rein in because once the activists got started reorganizing the villages, they tended to keep on going. Liberation, in effect, had produced a new class who wanted to keep on liberating. The Chinese don't put their liberation in quotes, as their previous status included so many shackles, which may be a minor consideration to non-Chinese, but it certainly shouldn't be. To sum up, replacing what they have told you about the Great Leap Forward is a real step towards your own liberation. Why? Because Western views are based on historical nihilism, sensationalism, and deliberately misleading information. I hope I have not given the impression of any sort of whitewashing of the Great Leap Forward's famine. Obviously, that would be dangerous and wrong, and I reject any such accusations. I do hope I have clarified the context, actions, philosophical motivations, and the great results of the Great Leap Forward. My main hope is that this leads to demonization of the first generation of Chinese revolutionaries by showing that the famine was not the results of demons, but well-intentioned humans in pursuit of a very modest goal, but one never seen on Earth: socioeconomic equality.